Yeah.
Because you gave me a few tales over the years about some of the interesting things you got up to in various workplaces, and I tried to write down ones I remembered. For instance, there is at your house a model of a gate which is locked, because apparently you'd been locked out of your own warehouse.
I've been locked out of my own warehouse, yeah. This guy was, I forget what I'd done. I'd done something or other, or made some decision which he objected to. He was the union leader, and so he called a union meeting and said we're going to lock him out of the warehouse. And a lady called Lynn, it was Lynn something, Mac something. She said, "You can't do that. He's the boss. You can't just lock him out. Oh, we can lock him out of the warehouse." So anyway, the story got round very, very quickly that they'd voted to lock me out of the warehouse. I think most of them thought it was a bloody stupid idea, but they thought we'd go along with this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they locked me out of the warehouse, and then and Lynn got this little memo put forward, the gate with the padlock on it and everything. The warehouse manager, rather Lynn McNaughton, that was her name, Lynn McNaughton. She was, her husband was the leader of the unions on site. He was the site union leader. Rick McNaughton, I think his name was. Anyway, and Lynn was in the union, and Lynn was leader of AWU, I think, in those days. And I was looking for someone to be a supervisor in the warehouse, for somebody who'd resigned. And I ended up approaching Lynn McNaughton because I thought she was a bloody good leader, you know, that just came across as a good leader to me. Somebody with a bit of sense in their head. And when I asked her, she was a bit taken aback, you know. Here's she been fighting the manager, and the manager's asking him to go and work for him, you know. Anyway, she accepted the job, and as I anticipated, did a bloody good job of it too. She was just one of these natural leaders, you know, just knew how to lead men. And there mainly were men in that warehouse. I've found over time is that you get too many men in a warehouse or in a facility with no women to balance it out, then they become mongrels. And if you have a whole workforce full of women, then they all become cattish and start fighting amongst themselves. And there was always a balance, one with the other, and then they looked after each other that way. In the time in the clothing factory when we owed people uniforms. We used to make our own uniforms in the Public Transport Corporation, and we owed people over 5,000 garments, I think it was, because people were entitled every year to a new set of gear, and we hadn't been able to provide it because we just couldn't make them, you know, at the speed at which they were required. So I said, okay, we will hire some temporary machinists to get it up to date. We had spare machines, and that's what we would do. And so we went to a company that did testing on machinists. They would pick ones which they thought were good. So they gave us 5 or 6 machinists, one of which was a man, and they'd only been on the job for a couple of days when the clothing foreman or manager, he came to me and said, "We've got a problem on the floor. The workforce want to speak with you." And I said, "No," I said, "I won't speak with them, but I will speak with a representative of their group." I knew the workforce on the floor had 3 distinct groups. There were Australians, there were Italians or Greeks, and there was another group, and they all sat at their own table in the mess hall, and that was how they came together. And I said, "I'll speak for one representative with each of the groups to represent them." So I came down there after lunch, and they sat in front of me, and I said, "Okay, what is the issue we have here?" They said, "It's about the temporary machinists." I said, "Yes," and they waffled on something. I said, "Look," "we've all agreed on this, that we would have these temporary machinists here until such a time as they're not needed. You know, there's nothing special here." And I said, "I don't understand what your complaint is." And then the woman from the Australian group, she said, "We ain't going to have no rooster in our hen house." And I then understood what the problem was, because one of these temporary machinists was a Vietnamese man, and the whole workroom was female, except for the cutters. The cutters were male, and what they were saying is that they didn't want to have a rooster in their hen house. So if it hadn't have been so serious, it would have been funny, you know. But here they were complaining about it. Anyway, I literally said, you know, the man stays as long as he can demonstrate that he has the skills that we need to make uniforms. I said, "I'm not going to discriminate against him because he's a man." And I said, you know well as I do that we're an equal opportunity company, you know, and the fact that he's a male is, well, it's one of the ways it is. But after about a week, this guy was so good at his job. He was a small man, he had small hands and fingers, so ideally for manoeuvring, you know, cloth under machines and things like that. And he just wowed them all. You know, he eventually, they came to admire him, how good he was, and he was like the leader of the workforce.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, funny.
Yeah, that works out, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you also told me that there was an opportunity you had one time, this is in probably your more recent career, where you got to name a ship.
Yes, I did. You see that photograph, Owen?
I'm sorry.
Hello.
Hello, can I put it